Hello everyone. Today we're going to talk about sequential function chart, or SFC for short. This is one of the languages standardized by IEC under IEC 61131-3. So this language is one of the options that you have for defining your process, for describing the logic of your process. And as the name says, it's sequential. So we will see that it executes step by step the process, some process. And this is easy to see depending on the type of programming or the system that you are using. So it may be a good option for those systems so you can better see which step you are. And for that, people that are going to do the maintenance in your system can give a better maintenance to it depending on the case. Okay, so yes, here we have a figure that shows an example of a batch that's being done in a certain chemical plant. So let's imagine this is the start of the process of producing that batch. So this shape here is not necessarily as it shows here. Depending on the manufacturer, it may change a little bit, but there's always something saying that, okay, this is the start point, okay? And after that, you have those rectangles that represent what's called the step, okay? So the step is something that must be executed, some action that must be executed during all your process, your sequence of the process, okay? So in this case, the first step says check reactor. So this is an action about checking the reactor. You must have something to check the reactor, some kind of logic. And after that, we will see a kind of a line like this that's crossed with the main line that shows what's the sequence, what goes next. And this is the transition. So this crossed line here with some condition means the transition. The transition is some logical statement that defines what must be satisfied so your sequence will stop doing something that's before the transition and will move to the next action of your SFC or your next step, okay? So in this case, just to give an example, as you have here, the first action is to check the reactor, and it will go either this way or this way. This is a selective branch. So the selective branch means what's the first transition to occur, that's the way the SFC sequence will take as the way to go to the next step, okay? So let's imagine in this case, okay, check reactor, and we have here reactor empty. If the reactor is empty, it moves to charge A action. But if the reactor, after checking, is not empty, it will go this way and goes to this action. It goes to this action. That's drain reactor. It must be drained before we do something else. Okay, once the reactor drain is completed, it goes back to check reactor and it checks again if it's empty or not empty. So let's imagine that in this situation it's empty. So this transition is valid. It's going to take this way in the sequence of execution. So it goes to this step, charge A, and it will charge the reactor with a product, 2,000 pounds of certain product, okay? So it goes so on and so forth. I don't have the intention here to explain all the details of SFC. So I just want to explain the basic concepts of SFC. And this is going to be the video for this first step. And after that, I'm going to show you how to build these SFC in your GX Works3, the software made by Mitsubishi Electric for the newest models of PLC. Okay, so that's it for this first explanation. I'm going to put this down here. And now we're going to open a program that I did here to show you about SFC. Okay, so I created a project for FX5U, as you can see here in the bottom part. And imagine that I want to create an SFC program. Okay, so I have a program here called simulation. So let's forget about it. It's just to do some simulation I will do after this first example. So imagine this program. Let's consider, for instance, that it's all clean, no programs on the POU. Okay, so what you would do, so it's the same I'm going to do here. So you click with the right button of your mouse, and then you select add new data. So after that, you can name your program with whatever name you want. I'm going to select here SFC, and I'm going to put this name here, traffic light. I will explain why in a moment. Okay. An important thing is that if you have already a program that's running ladder or another language, like my case here, it will create a new program. It's important to consider that. That's totally normal. Okay, that's part of the demand of the system about separation of programs depending on the language. In case of SFC, the program must be in a separated program file. Okay, so I'm going to call this program file SFC. What makes sense? And execution type is scan, so it's going to run every scan. So I just click OK, and after some moments, that's what appears to you. Okay, so what we're gonna do here is that I created, using GT Simulator, a traffic light. So you have here the red, the yellow, and the green, as you can see. And this is an example of something that I could describe using SFC. Okay, so we have here are some stages, some phases, like the example about the badge that I showed you before. So let's say when we start the traffic light, it will start as red. So after some while, it goes green, and then goes yellow, and after that, back to red. Okay, so as you can see, it's a sequence here that we can describe using SFC. And we can see wherever we are in the program, the step will be lit, showing you which part of the program is being executed, which step is under execution now. Okay, so let's talk about SFC in GX Works3. So first thing is that the initial step, as I told you, here is a little bit different. It has this square inside another square, but it's marked here initial. So this is where your SFC will start. So another thing that's important to say is that the first block of your SFC, whenever it reaches the end step, that should be the last step you have, it restarts automatically back to the first step. Okay, so this is the way it works. Okay, so of course I can consider that and just leave it as it is, but in this case I'm going to exactly show here and describe here in this program that after the end step, it goes back or the final step here before the end step, it goes back to initial. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so I'm going to reduce the zoom. So I'm going to use the Control key and the wheel of the mouse to reduce. Okay, so if we go one way, it reduces the size. If we go the other way, it enhances. Okay, so let's just have less zoom here. Okay, and okay, so after that, I'm going to describe the traffic light sequence here. So how do I do that? I'm going to add the steps here that I need for the traffic light. So in my initial step, we are going to lit the red light. Okay. So to lit the red light, we must add some type of logic here to say, in this case, it's Y10, that Y10 must be on. Okay, so how do I do that? So I'll just go here to the action, where's market action 0. I'm going to double click, and it will appear this window here. And we can change this to red, for example, the name of the action. Okay, so we may call it red on. Okay, and we can pick which language I'm going to describe the logic that goes inside the step. So I'm going to use ladder. Okay, that's very well known by many people that use PLC. Okay, so it's kind of convenient. So after I do that, you can see that it opens an editor of a ladder. Okay, so just to make the visualization easy, I'm going to pop this out of this tab arranged mode here just by clicking here and moving with this little sheet here out. Okay, so I have this floating window here. Okay, so okay, I have here, as you can see, it selected this action here that's associated with the step. And here I'm going to say, okay, I must put a contact here as any Mitsubishi program that you do in ladder format. And I'm going to say Y10 on. Okay, so it says here that we are going to turn on the Y10 while we are in this initial step. Okay, so after that I just pressed F4. Okay, we got an error here. We're going to analyze that later. This error is because I don't have anything in my transition. Okay, so the advantage of having this floating window is that if I just click here on the transition, it will show what we have in the transition, and we have nothing. Okay, and the transition, that is the condition that we should move from this state from the next state. That means, okay, we are in the red with red on. We should move to the next step, well, where we should be with the green on. So what defines moving from the red to the green is the time, right? So we must add here a timer, and this timer will be executed while the transition is not satisfied as the logic condition. Okay, so what I will do here is that I'm going to use Control here just to open this branch on my ladder, and I'm going to add here Alt T0. So I picked the T0 as the my timer, and let's say it will be in the red condition for 5 seconds, let's say. Okay, So just for those who doesn't know Mitsubishi PLC, the timers, whenever I put like an out and a T0, it means by default that this timer is a time base of 100 milliseconds. What means that my set point must be multiplied by 100 milliseconds to get the full time or the done time for this timer. Okay, so here it means 5 seconds. Okay, so after 5 seconds, what will happen is that if I have a contact with the same address of T0, it will go on. Okay, it will be turned on. Okay, so okay, I'm going to compile this by using F4 of my keyboard. Okay, ignore this error for this moment. And the transition is gonna be like this T0 contact go on. So what I can do here is that for my first transition, I can just double click here, okay, and on the transition 0 here, and okay, we may put some name as you want, and let's say we are going to do it in letter. And how do I describe here my logic operation that is the logic condition that must be satisfied? So the logic condition in this case is just a contact of T0, okay? So I'm going to put a contact of T0 and to say, okay, this is the condition to cause the transition. I will use an instruction that just exists in transitions of SFC. And this instruction is, the name of this instruction is tran. That means cause transition. Okay, so after that, I'm going to just press F4 and it's compiled. So here we just delete the red light and we start our timer. So after 5 seconds, the contact with the name T0 will go on, what means that this transition is being tested all the time while executing this step. And once the transition condition is okay, what means T0 will go on, it goes to the next step. Okay, and in this case, the next step must be go to green light. Okay, so in order to add another step here before the end step, I'm going to click here, insert step. And there we go. So we do the same. Here we double click this action 0. Let's change this for green on. And letter again. And what I'm going to do here is again a contact that whenever it goes to this step, it will automatically do what's on the right here. That is to turn on the green light, that in my case is Y12. Okay, Y12. And in parallel, I'm going to start a timer T1 for, let's say, same 5 seconds. Okay, so it will stay with the green light on for 5 seconds. Okay, so let's compile this. It's done. Let's ignore this for a moment. And here we are. So after that, I'm going to do the same for this transition, just like I did for the transition of the red. So as you can see here, whenever I click some state, it automatically changes to whatever logic is inside this action or transition. Okay, so that's why I use this floating window. Okay, so I'm going to do the same I did here, but for the green light, and then I'm going to put the yellow light, and then I'll be back. Okay, so here we are. I just finished the program. So I just added the yellow one here. I used the timer T2, and here my transition is with the contact of T2, and that's it. So if I keep it like this, it will work because, as I told you, the block 0, that means this first sequence of SFC, it will restart automatically whenever it reaches the end step. It goes back to the initial step and starts all over. Okay, so if we download it like this to the PLC, it will work. Let's see. So I'm going to online. In my case, I'm using the simulator for convenience. So I'm going to select parameter and program, and downloading, yes to all, and there we go. Okay, so in order to monitor my SFC, I'm going to online, monitor, and monitor mode. Okay, so as you can see here, it's already running. You can see here this blue, navy blue color of the step means, okay, I am executing this step. Okay, now move it to the step of bring on, and then to yellow on, and so on. So as we can see here, it's executing cyclically. Okay, even with an end step that one should imagine that should be the to kill this SFC and never execute no more once it started. This is not the situation with the blocks here. Okay, so in my case, honestly, I prefer to keep it very clear, and I prefer to use here what we call a jump. So this jump step will just point to another step. It could be before this point or after this point, doesn't matter. That means, okay, after this, it's going to jump back or it's going to jump forward from this step. Okay, so let's do that. So how do I do that? So I'm going to stop here, monitor. So stop monitoring all windows. So after that, I click here on end step, right click, then I go to edit, and I choose this end step / jump. So once I do that, it will pop to me this box here where I choose from this point where should I jump to. So I'm going to jump to the initial step. That's the red on, back to the red on. So I just click here, double click, and then I hit enter. So as you can see here, it created this end step that I may get rid of, just deleting. Okay, and you see here a line that shows, okay, after the step 1 here, after the transition, we go back to the initial state. So this is much easier to see exactly what's going on. So let's see how it behaves. So I'm going to convert the whole thing. So we're going to rebuild all. So no errors. Online, write to PLC, parameter and program. Okay, close. And let's monitor this. So I'm going to online, monitor, monitor mode. And as you can see here, it's working. And for some person that see here what's going on, it's much clearer to see that it's jumping back here to initial and going so on and so forth. So basically, this is the basics of the SFC. So if you want to know more about SFC, just put in the comments below, and I will do another video with some doubts that you may have, or some suggestions, or something that you want to know, so I can prepare a video. Okay, so put your comments and say if you want another video that's more deep in the SFC and what we can do with SFC. Okay, so for this moment, that's it. I hope I could help with this video, and I see you next video. Bye.